Hello, everybody. Welcome to my Abysscraft Set 9 card review. And so, without further ado, let's get to the card scale rating system. Let's take a look at my card rating system. Keep in mind that the rating is based on how good the deck can be for the deck that can run it. So a card may not be necessarily meta, but I might rate it as like a, let's say, 3 because it is a good average strength card for the deck that it can be best utilized in. So at 5 is the highest at being, meta defining, meta warping, and would totally be needed in the deck that would run it. Number 4 is it's a strong, good card for the deck, but it is not, meta warping, so you'd still probably run max copies of it. Number 3 is it's an average strength card that is needed for its deck, and it might be run at like 2 of, but probably more likely than not still 3 copy. 2 is it is good, but it's might be on the weaker end of things, or might be a little more fringe in its use. So you might run it at like 1 or 2 copies. 1 is it is rarely seen because it is not great or very niche in nature. And then 0 is it is just a bad card with almost no purpose, or there's just not enough support for it. All right, starting off with a pretty loaded card in Evo. You got Vanya, Nightshade Vampire, which is a 3-cost 3/3 vampire princess. On evolve for 1, you can turn her into Kind Queen Vanya for evolving for 3. And if you have at least 5 vampire cards in the cemetery, you can evolve her into the Blood Queen Vanya version. And on fanfare, the description does say it summons a Forest Bat token. However, according to the Japanese, it says Forest Batto Ichimai o EX area ni oku, which means put the Forest Bat into the EX area. So slight translation error there, but that's fine. Not a huge deal. It's better that it's put in the EX area. So looking at the Kind Queen Vanya variant, it's kind of the early game version, where you can kind of play a 3-cost 1 Evo on, turn 3 if you're going second, or turn 4 if you're going first. And the Kind Queen Vanya does get +1/+1 on Evo, and when it's on the field, your Force Bats are cost 1 less to play. When you play a Force Bat, you do gain a life, and that is not once per turn, so nice little bit of life gain there. On evolve, you do draw a card and discard a card, so a little bit of nice cycling there. Helps you get those 5 vampire cards into your cemetery easier. And then the late game variant is the Blood Queen Vanya. It's a 2-sided Evo card, so you got the Kind Queen Vanya on one side and the Blood Queen Vanya on the other side. And Blood Queen Vanya has Storm. It does cost 3 Evo points, but you do get +3/+3, so it's pretty appropriately allocated. But yeah, she does get Storm. While it's on the field, your Force Bats, again, cost 1 less to play. And whenever a Force Bat token is put onto the field, you deal 3 damage to an enemy follower. So the idea is to play the bats after you evolve her, and you can clear out some followers that might have ward, and then you can just kind of rush in for 6 damage with Blood Queen Vanya. She is kind of the finisher of the deck, and I rank her as a 5 because she's, kind of the top end, the real strong card of the deck. The alternative top end finisher for the deck is Crimson Rose Queen as well. Most decks tend to run her at like 2 copies with 2 Evos. So just as an alternative option. And she can also be grabbed and resummoned with Kudlak, which was from a set or 2 ago. I think it was 2 sets ago at this point. But yeah, really strong card overall. Kind of the core card of the deck. So you're definitely going to just be running 3 at all times. All right, next up is Arcus Spirited Manager. It's a 2-cost 5/5, so pretty beefy stats. Can even survive a Surefire Bullet, which is pretty surprising. But it has quite a few abilities. I mean, in exchange for the stats, it can't attack enemies, whether it's followers or leaders. And at the start of the main phase, if you have 10 cards in Cemetery, you can summon a Ghost token. And it has an act that you can choose once per turn by sacrificing a follower on your field. You can either draw a card, summon 2 Ghost tokens, or mill 2. I could see early on trying to get the mill going, so that might be more of an early game effect, but probably late game, you'll probably either want to draw a card or get 2 ghost tokens. Um, it's pretty varied as far as what decks want to play it. Anything from vampires to Masquerade Ghosts to Demon Lord Ektar Necrocharge, because he is departed. With vampires, it's kind of more of a niche role. Some decks run it, some don't. It's definitely not a staple. And I have heard that it can be kind of a pain in the butt to get rid of when you don't want it on the board anymore. Um, but Masquerade Ghost and Demon Lord Ektar fit it much better. Masquerade Ghost, the ghost just helps. You get +1 on the ghost. Um, and when you sacrifice it with its act ability, you also do get a Gargantuan Ghost if Masquerade Ghost is on the board. So good synergy. And then with Demon Lord Ektar, you can res him back since he is a 2 cost, and he can res back with either being a 6/6, or if you're a Necrocharge 20, he becomes an 8/8, which can get pretty crazy. And then if you also res back Chris Pumpkinhead, at the end of the turn, you could give a +1/+1 ward, so it could potentially be a 9/9 warder. Which is nothing to ignore. Although granted, I suppose you don't have to worry about it hitting you, but unless you have like a pretty hard kill spell, you might have to run a few followers into it to kill it or cast a few spells. But yeah, pretty solid card. I give it a rank 4 because it's pretty solid. I feel like it's has a lot of flexible options, but it's definitely not like meta warping or anything. All right, and next is the other really good vampire card that is basically an automatic 3 of with 3 evos for the deck, and it's Old Blood King. I usually call him OBK for short, so I'll probably be saying that quite a bit. But OBK is a 4-cost 2/4, so a little understated, but with his abilities, you can kind of understand why. While he's on the board, your Force Bat tokens have Rush and Assail, and on Fanfare you get 2 Force Bats just for free. So, it's kind of where you can kind of think maybe a few of the attack stats go. On Evolve, you do get, he does turn into a 3/5, and on Evolve you do get all your Force Bat tokens with +1 attack. And as long as he's on the board, though, they all have Rush and Assail, so they can help kind of clear the board of threats pretty well. Um, he's a really solid card, and like I mentioned here, he can be grabbed with Kudlak. A common thing to do is play Kudlak, grab OBK, and either one of the Vanyas. Actually, no, sorry, not one of the Vanyas. The original Vanya. The 2 costs that when you play it, it gets +1/+1 based on how many vampire bats you have on the board. So pretty strong board. And then once you summon everything, because that's a full board including Kudlak, with Kudlak you could tap to deal 5 to something. So yeah, just a solid card. I mean, I ranked it 4 just because it's real strong and it's absolutely needed for the deck, but it's just, it's not meta defining. So next up, we take a hard turn from really good, 4 or 5 rank cards to 1 with Dark Feast Bat. It is a 6-cost 4/4 Vampire Beast. And on Fanfare, you select an enemy follower on the field, you deal 4 damage to it and its leader. And then if Sanguine is active, you do recover 3 play points. For being a vampire, it is not run in the vampire deck. It is actually more used in Sanguine and Nephthys decks. I would say, if anything, more Nephthys than Sanguine, but with having a Sanguine ability, it certainly could be easily put into Sanguine. The problem with it, though, is it is 6 with just okay stats at 4/4. It'd be nice if it was like 5/5. I mean, 6/6 seems like that'd probably be overkill for the ability, but yeah, I mean, with something like this, you'd probably have to be at turn 7 to even play a card that costs 1 to trigger Sanguine, unless you have something. Unless you have one card that I'll mention later, or you have, like, let's say Antelope Pelt Warrior on the field that can just trigger it at the start of the turn. It I will mention, I kind of mentioned in the miscellaneous notes there that it does synergize well with Blood Moon, which we'll get to later. Um, and even though it could be grabbed by Kudlak, you're just not going to play this card in like competitive Vampire. So I wouldn't really kind of fixate on that too much. And shooting back to a good card, going from 4 to 1 to 4, is Gift for Bloodkin. It's a 2-cost spell. If there are at least 5 vampire cards in your cemetery, you can just play it for free. So late game, it's a free card effectively. And when you play it, you put 2 force bat tokens on the field. And if you have a card with Vanya, a follower with Vanya, let me just specify, but a follower with Vanya in your cemetery, you do draw a card. There's going to be a little bit of an explanation as far as that goes in a little bit when we get to the appropriate cards, but just a solid card that you'll just probably run 3 of. I don't really know why you wouldn't. Obviously, it's mainly meant for vampire decks. Many vampire decks do run Crimson Rose Queen as an alternative finisher to the Vanya from the beginning, the legendary one. So because it is a 2-cost, even if you play it for free later on, it is a 2-cost card, so it still would trigger Crimson Rose Queen. And the only 2 Vanya cards are Vanya Nightshade Vampire and Vanya Vampire Princess, which if anyone knows Japanese, it might be a little confusing, but we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, really good card overall. And shooting back down to a rank 1 card is Big Soul Hunter and its Evo. It's a 4-cost 3/4 Necromancer Cutthroat that has no ability on its base form, and because of its attributes, really doesn't fit into anything in particular like Departed. But on Evolve for 1, it does become a 4/5, and it has a rather unique effect. The only other card I can think of having this kind of unique effect is a Yuzuki. Righteous Demon, but on Evolve, each player selects 1 follower with the highest attack. Each enemy player, let me just specify, selects 1 follower with the highest attack on the field and puts it into their cemetery. So this can easily get around cards like Heavenly Aegis, which is probably going to be the biggest attack card on the board. So it does help in that regards. With Yuzuki, you might think Yuzuki's better, and it certainly probably is in most cases, even including Heavenly Aegis. But with Yuzuki, it's kind of a little bit of an issue if your opponent has 3 or more followers on the board and you want to get rid of Heavenly Aegis, then your opponent can just sack 2 things that aren't Aegis. But at least with this, it doesn't matter, and you can just safely assume that Aegis will be thrown away. I kind of categorize this more under like a toolbox card. Its attributes, like I said, don't really align with any certain deck. And it's kind of seems more like just a niche option in case like your locals, let's say, really loves Havencraft, for example. You know, you could run probably a couple of this and a couple of its Evos if you have the space, and at least have like some kind of option other than Yuzuki. But I would think overall, I still think Yuzuki's better, especially since she doesn't take up a Evo slot. And she does have the dual purpose of just like you're being able to pay 3 and mill 1 to deal 5 to a follower, which could kill Arcus, you know, for example. So, you know, it's just an okay card, but it just feels like there's better things than it. So yeah, it's not going to be probably used too much. All right, next up is the 3 Raven cards. This is going to be a long section, but let me go through each one by one, and then I'll kind of try to cover them all. They all kind of serve similar purposes. The first one, Raven Eventide Vampire, is a 2-cost 1/1 that you can engage it and put a force bat token on your field to the cemetery, and you choose one of the following. You can either select an enemy found on the field and deal 4 and draw, so a nice little bit of hand cycle, or not hand cycle, but just a hand draw, or deal 2 damage to each enemy leader and give your leader 2 life and draw a card. So either way, you're drawing a card. So pretty solid card. I'd say the only like kind of downside of it is a 1/1, so it can kind of just be like you blow some wind on it and it'll probably just kind of fall away. And during this set, Angelic Barrage does become relatively popular, so I wouldn't be shocked if that's used to kind of handle things like this. But that being said, too, I mean, it's you kind of have to, your opponent kind of has to wait to play Angelic Barrage before you attack. So it's not like they can just quick and, destroy Raven before you can even use her ability. Next is Raven Noontide Vampire. It's a 1-cost 1/2. It's a vampire Lightborn. They're all vampires at the very least, but Noontide and Midnight are just Lightborn and Cutthroat respectively. With Noontide, once on each of your turns, whenever you play a Forest Bat, you gain a life, and on Fanfare, you put a Forest Bat into your EX area. So if you're on turn 2, you could play her, you get the bat, then you play the bat, and you gain a life. Nothing super crazy, but, nice little bit of early game life gain. And then last is Raven, which is effectively the opposite, including stats-wise. It's a 1-cost 2/1, that on each of your turns, whenever you put a Force Bat on the field, you deal 1 damage to the enemy leader, and on Fanfare, you get a Force Bat. So same thing. If you're on the second turn, you could just play her, play 1, and burn 1. Out of all 3 of these, I think Raven Midnight Vampire is kind of the weakest, mainly because the 1 damage is just okay. Like, you rarely are you gonna have a game where it's just like your opponent's at 1 life left and you can just be like, play a Force Bat, burn, win, right? And then with her being at 1 defense, it is very susceptible to Angelic Barrage, and isn't as flexible as something like Raven Eventide Vampire, especially with the draw. The draw is just real nice for that card. So I'd say rank from worst to best, or from best to worst, sorry, is Raven Eventide. Actually, it's right across the way I wrote this down. So Raven Eventide, Noontide, and then Midnight. But all of them are good. They're all just solid cards. That's why I ranked them at 3. Because they're all vampires and they all deal with vampires. They're just mainly for vampire decks. You could argue. I'm trying to think of, maybe you could arguably run maybe the 1 costs in a more aggressive deck if you kind of just want to get the damage on the board, especially Raven Midnight Vampire. But that's not going to be something that's super common. But I could see it in theory as a good just turn 1. You play it, you get a 2 cost. Next turn you could just pay 1 to get a Forced Bat to burn, and then you swing for 2. It's just good early game aggro. But the thing I wanted to specify with the Gift for Bloodkin from earlier is, and I guess if you don't know Japanese, it's not a big deal, but all 3 of these cards in Japanese names are actually Vanya. But in English, they're called Raven, and the Vanya cards are Vampy. So I'm not sure. I think, long story short, these don't count for Gift for Bloodkin, but the 2 Vanyas I mentioned earlier are. So it's a little weird with the translation. I find that very interesting. And I guess just to kind of finish it off here, but one nice thing is with Kudlak, you could, play Kudlak, get Raven, and get OBK. Play Raven, play OBK, play a few bats. Just, good synergy there. All right, next up is honestly the card that I am actually kind of most hyped for, and I know it's obviously not meta, but the effect and everything. When I read it, I'm just like, yo, this is just covering so many things for Sanguine Aggro that I was just kind of I took a double take when I originally read this card. But it's Blood Moon. It's a 2-cost amulet. On Fanfare, you can search your deck for a Beast Follower, reveal it and add it to your hand, and activate, engage it, so put it to the cemetery and deal damage to each leader, which also includes yourself. And I'm kind of hyped for this card because if you noticed earlier, Dark Feast Bat, it is a beast. So I can see what they were going for, at least from the set's perspective, is play Blood Moon, wait up to turn 6, assuming you play Blood Moon on turn 2 and you search out Dark Feast Bat. You search out Dark Feast Bat, you wait till turn 6, you sack it for the turn, and because it's an amulet, it is pretty well protected. There's not a lot of amulet hate in general, and so you can sack it on turn 6. You play the Dark Feast Bat. You destroy a follower or you deal 4 to the follower, or deal 4 to the enemy leader, and then you gain 3 play points back. And what is nice about that as well is that can follow up with Argavi the Berserker, since Argavi is 3. So then you could just slam down an Argavi and be like, end of turn, burn you for 3. So total, you could deal 7 damage to your enemy leader. However, that being said, that feels incredibly slow. And so I think the best route with this card tends to be probably the simplest, which is Aragavi the Berserker himself can just be searched with Blood Moon. So I would just play this turn 2, search for Aragavi, hold out on using it till turn 3. You sack it on turn 3 to deal damage to everybody, including yourself. Every leader, I should specify, not followers. But deal 1 to each enemy leader, and then including yourself, and then play Aragavi, and end of turn, you burn your opponent for 3. Yes, you can do Dark Feast Bat, but that just feels so slow. And if you're playing Sanguine aggro, you just kind of want to keep like moving and and trying to swing as fast as possible. Um, and other than Aragavi and Dark Feast Bat, I would say just kind of what I have here is like kind of Bear Pelt Warrior and Antelope Pelt Warriors, nice options as well. They're also beasts. I think there's also Cougar Pelt Warrior, but she's like god awful atrocious. You'd never play her normally. So, but those are kind of the next best options. But even then, Bear Pelt and Antelope Pelt don't really have any real synergy with Blood Moon, since neither one has to do with Sanguine activating. I'm just also hyped because this card also helps with shuffling your deck. Sanguine never had a shuffle card before this. So this just helps in that regards too. So that's why it's such a good universal card. People might kind of be surprised I put it at rank 3, but it is just such a nice consistency addition and shuffle to your deck for Sanguine aggro that it, to me at least, it just kind of hits like that. That it's a good card for the deck, for the best deck that it can be run in, and so it's at least a 3. It's not over the top like 4, meta defining like 5, but it's at least like better than just kind of like a niche okay card, you know. So all right, next is a another weird card that I feel like it has no true home. It's called Orator of the Bones. It's a 1-cost 1/1 that evolves for 1 and becomes a 2/2. The base form has no special ability, and on evolve, you select an Abysscraft follower in your cemetery and add it to hand. I'm trying to like think of the best thing this could be used for, and like the best I can think of is like an alternative Demon Lord Ektar card. Um, but it just seems like such a stretch that I'd almost rather just run, especially because of it being an Evo. The Evo just takes up like such a valuable slot. Um, I'd almost, instead of running this for the deck, I'd almost rather run Hell's Unleasher. But this is just kind of, it's only Necromancer, it's not even Departed, so it doesn't even synergize that in that way with Demon Lord Ektar and like the main Departed, you know, build. Yeah, so just a really weird fringe card that I really don't think has like a specific purpose at this point. And as you can probably tell, we're kind of getting near the end. So all these cards are starting to be kind of mediocre, you know, rank 1, rank 2. I don't think I ever ranked anything as 0. Everything seemed to at least have some kind of like purpose in some way, shape, or form. If you really tried. But yeah, next is Death the Nyctophile. And it's a 6-cost 5/6. And it's a departed card, so that's nice in regards to it has some synergy with a departed themed deck. Uh, but that's about its abilities are okay. It has rush and last words. You can select an enemy follower on the field, destroy it, and deal 3 damage to its leader. Um, which seems nice, but why do they have to put so much into its defense to make it die? It is baffling with something like this where it's like kind of the goal is to just rush into something to trigger its last words. You kind of want something like Arian where it's a 6-cost 3/3, you know, so low stats, so it'll die easily, but it just doesn't do anything. I mean, I guess you could like grab it back with Death's Breath, Grave Desecration, and Tartarus the Tormentor, but why would you why wouldn't you just do Demon Lord Ektar? So, um as far as the best deck ranking goes, I try to go from like in theory probably the best option to the worst option. So honestly, I think if you run a kind of more Nephthys related deck, it's easier to just trigger the last words. But even then, something like this, I'd almost rather just run like Yuzuki Righteous Demon and just have better effects and just more flexibility with her act costing 3 play points early game if you need to do that. Um, so it is a very weird card that I don't feel like is optimal in any certain fashion to really produce any real outcome, especially for 6 play points. Like by 6, you kind of turn 6/7, you're kind of like putting the gas on, and you want to play the cards that really actually have solid effects. So yeah, it's kind of a rank 1, arguably almost 0. If it wasn't for the fact that it was departed, so it has a little bit of synergy with Ektar, and its last words being good for Nephthys. And last is, but it's actually not least. I'm actually a little hyped for this card, despite how relatively simple it is, but it at least feels better than Death to Nyctophile. Is Poltergeist, which is a 1-cost spell, and at quick you can mill 2 to your cemetery, which doesn't seem like anything super special, but I honestly kind of think I like this card more than Grave Desecration. Grave Desecration sometimes just feels a little awkward, like taking up a spot on the board. Especially if you kind of get to the mid to late game where it's like you want to play Tartarus the Tormentor, then Demon Lord Ektar, then 2 of its followers, and then if you if you summon something back like Mischievous Zombie and you discard a card to want to summon a ghost for the 5th slot, it just kind of takes up that 5th slot, but with Poltergeist only just being a spell that basically has the first half of um Grave Desecration's ability, you can kind of just play it on turn 1 and just move on with your life, and at least you got 3 in the cemetery very early on. And then turn 2, if you want to do like Spartoy Sergeant, so you get 2 more, so that's 5. And then turn 3, you could do like Bone Chimera to mill 3 more, and then you're at Necrocharge 8, which at least triggers Bone Chimera. It just helps really get the Necrocharge going real fast, and with it being a departed attribute as well, really helps with getting Tartarus the Tormentor as soon as possible, which is usually turn 5 if you're going second with the evil point, or turn 6 if you're going first. So, really solid card. And then you can also have a little bit of mind games with this card if you do tech in Angelic Barrage in your deck and you float 1 play point, depending on what your opponent's playing and what the board state is. If they really don't play a lot of 1 cost, you can be like, okay, I'll just pay the 1 to just Poltergeist. Or if they do play a lot of, bats or just 1 defense followers from vampires, you'd be like, okay, then I will Angelic Barrage and just, kind of clear out the board. So it does add a little bit of nice flexibility to a departed deck if you're kind of teching in, Angelic Barrages. So that's why I kind of ranked it at 2. If it was just a non-quick, just mill 2, I would probably rank it a 1, but I think the quick kind of bumps it up just like 1 tier. So I would say at least for like Demon Lord Ektar / departed Necrocharge-ish decks, pretty solid card to throw in and just get the Necrocharge going real quick. And that concludes the review. Thanks for watching if you've gotten this far, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you did like the content. I probably will be a little slow to upload videos, but I kind of wanted to get a review out for this set for Abysscraft. I was just kind of really hyped and excited, and just kind of wanted to talk about it. So, again, thanks for watching, and have a great day. Peace.